Autos were actually very positive on consumption. We think this GST the cut is coming as a big boost to affordability. Also, the timing is very opportune just around the festive season. And then this is also happening after almost an year and a half of fairly subdued demand.
True.
So this, in our view, should bring a very big boost to demand. When I think of different segments of demand, let's say entry versus mid and maybe premium across two-wheelers and passenger vehicles, while yes, affordability improvement helps the entry level a lot. But we also believe that people who were maybe earlier going to buy an entry-level vehicle will now have the capacity to buy maybe a mid-sized car or a motorcycle. So we think that the demand boost that comes is going to be across the different segments. And that can be very specific, like a 350cc plus motorcycle, which is specifically seeing a GST increase. But other than some very specific segments, we think this is a very broad-based demand boost and not just at the entry level.
You're looking at from an up-trading perspective, right? In the sense, if the kind of boost that a person gets is from 70 to 90,000 rupees per car, and that could give him additional leeway to look maybe a model higher or a upgrade higher to a higher level. Is that what you're looking at, and it's not going to change the entry level dynamics?
No, so what I meant was there is going to be a demand boost across the categories.
Yeah.
So at an entry level, so for someone who was finding it difficult to afford a vehicle earlier, right, it becomes a lot more easier for him to afford. So we're not saying entry level will not get a boost. Entry level should definitely get a boost, but that demand boost is not limited to the entry level, because someone who was earlier going to buy, let's say, an entry-level vehicle, now will have the capability to buy something better. So the entire curve of demand gets lifted upwards rather than just in one single category.
From an earnings point of view, how do you see that panning out for FY26 and 27? You almost have 2 quarters, which is almost like a sluggish growth coming in. A boost coming through consumption, maybe Q3, Q4 onwards, which will be there. You see FY27 to be the big year in terms of numbers, volumes?
Yeah, so we do think second half FY26 and that flowing into FY27 through FY28 should be very strong for volume growth and earning growth for most of the companies. So across most of the OEMs, we are thinking anywhere between 10 to 15, 16% 3-year volume CAGR, and that translating into, let's say, a 12, 13 to a 25% kind of an earnings CAGR over the next 2 to 3 years.
Two-wheelers, it's been sluggish for a couple of years now. I don't think we have crossed the pre-COVID numbers in two-wheelers. What's happening there? Do you see electrification of two-wheelers, cannibalizing the growth for the category there?
So, we'll talk about electrification, but let's say we think of total two-wheeler demand, including EVs.
Yeah.
Right? Even that is still below where we were in FY19, which was the pre-COVID.
Yeah.
What has happened in two-wheelers is that we have gone through one of the most draconian phase of vehicle price increases, because we had a combination of various regulatory as well as commodity cost push that has made vehicles very expensive especially over 2020 to 2022 period. So we had this 3-year period where demand went down by almost 35%. And we started to see that demand coming back now. So across different categories of autos, we're actually most positive on volume growth in two-wheelers over the next 2 to 3 years, because there is not just a boost that is coming from, let's say, a GST cut or an income tax cut, but there's also a lower base on which this industry can grow.
Yeah.
So we think two-wheelers will grow the fastest over the next 3 years, followed by tractors and passenger vehicles, followed by trucks.
If you look at some of the numbers there, many of the companies which are coming out with the wholesale numbers, a large part of the growth is driven by the exports rather than domestic consumption, which is there. Do you see that reversing? Last 1 year we've been seeing month on month how exports have been contributing a significant portion to the growth. Do you see with urban consumption coming back after GST cut, that trend reversing?
So the gap should definitely narrow. So exports also went through a phase of a down cycle, and then they started to recover over the last year or so on that lower base. And yes, as you rightly said, we have in most of the recent period, exports have done better than domestic in terms of the volume growth. So we do see domestic volume growth coming back as well. And at some stage, exports growth will also get more normalized because the base will catch up. But yes, that spread should narrow. And in our view, both the domestic as well as export should see a fairly healthy somewhere between 10, 12, 13% kind of a volume CAGR.
Nitij, let me pivot from autos to two thematic research reports that you came in with. The first one is semiconductors, and you told me that at some point in time you were doing designing at NVIDIA as well in your career. How do you see semiconductor phase in India, the growth cycle? We're talking about how the US companies are looking at investing nearly $350 billion in capex in AI and other stuff. In India, we are just in a nation's stage. $18 billion is what the figures that you've written about. How do you see that investment happening in India?
See, in India, the whole semiconductor and electronics industry is at a very early stage of inflection in our view. There are multiple tailwinds that are coming together. So there is already a very large and rising domestic demand. And on top of that, the government policies have been very favorable to kickstart the sector. So they started with the PLI, and we started to do a lot of assembly of mobile phones in India. And then the government was very prudent in following that up with a specific semiconductor incentive plan and then electronics component scheme as well. So now, in fact, we are at a phase where we can start to move from assembly into higher value add like chips and components.